Saving the brakes. Alright, let's see what else we got. We are in Scottsbluff, Nebraska, looking for a job. Alright, short ride, lots of talking. Hey boys and girls, this is American Truck Simulator. I'm Old Guy Gamer. We are in Scottsbluff, Nebraska, and I've made some decisions. Let's hit the road. We're going to work on the book a little bit more today, and I'll discuss with you what I've done to make my company a little bit more retro. Anyways, we're taking our company a little bit retro. I decided, I was laying in bed the other night and thinking, you know what? I got rid of this truck. It's a mod truck. I should say 3 years ago, I started IK Freight as a new playlist. And I bought this truck used on the marketplace. It was $55,000. It's a mod. Just to have fun and start my trucking company with a cheap truck. And I was laying in bed the other night and I'm like, why am I not using that truck still? Like, I know my company got really big. I've got 300 or 400 drivers, whatever the max is, that's what I've got. I've got all these trucks, and I'm like, I should go back and look for my original truck that I started the company with. So for all you people who can't tell that I'm just using my imagination, I went back and reinstalled this mod. And I'm going to pretend that I scoured the country looking for my original truck, and I found it. I didn't even line it up right, my goodness. So I found my old truck. Somebody added fenders to it since I got rid of it, which is cool. They kept the old paint job. We got new air horns on the top. Those are different. But it is the same truck, the same mod that I had installed 3 years ago to start this company. I'm still off to the right a little bit. So, we're going to do a job or two with the old, I forget what year this was, Kenworth K100. I think it's a K100E according to the mod. According to the mod, this is a K100E. I don't know exactly what that means, but it is a K100. And I am really excited to hit the road in this thing. I did a lot of videos with this old truck. What's oversized about this load? Nothing. It shouldn't have really flags on it, I don't think, but we are going to jump in this old truck for nostalgia's sake. I'm the owner, I can do whatever I want. Let's hit the road. Well, the last couple weeks I've been doing a lot of scenic viewpoints. Go back and look at the one for Scottsbluff. Look at the secret roads near Scottsbluff. I did the secret roads as just videos. I did the scenic viewpoints as videos, and then I think I did the secret roads as YouTube shorts also. Check out the secret roads near Scottsbluff. They are amazing. Very long, very detailed, very cool. Short trip today, 50 miles, 59 minutes. I don't even have time to take a pause. Normally I take a pause and don't talk for a minute so I can get like driving and then start talking. But so I was born in 1975, and the book goes over what are some common everyday items and what did they cost in 1975. So I got a list. Everything's a Google search away. So let's see what they got. The president was Gerald Ford. Vice president was Nelson Rockefeller. In case you're wondering who he is. You've heard the name before. Population in the U.S. was 215 million. Life expectancy 72.6 years. This is all occurring in 1975, of course. The Dow Jones the high was 860 points. That's crazy, 860. And I haven't looked at it lately. What are we, over 20,000 now? The low was 610 that year. Federal spending was $332 billion. Federal debt was $541.9 billion. Now we measure those in trillions. Inflation was 14.1%. I do remember my parents having extremely high interest rates on their mortgages. I remember one time I was a kid and I found my parents' mortgage statements laying around saying what the percentage rate, and So I did the math to figure out what their pay. I don't remember what the payment was, but I knew we paid $55,000 for a house when I was a kid. This was when I was in like 3rd or 4th grade. I knew the house was $55,000, so I multiplied the payment times however many months are in 30 years. 360, is that right? And I found out how much interest they were going to be paying on a $55,000 loan, and I was like, holy cow. Why would anybody ever pay that much for a $55,000 house? But everyone was doing it back then. Those were the interest rates. Now I feel like I can't move because I'm going to lose my 3% interest rate on my house that I live in now. Consumer Price Index 53.8. I don't really know how to. I'm not an economist. I don't know what that means. Unemployment was 5.6%. Cost of a new home average in 1975, $42,600. So not too bad. I was talking about that $55,000 house my parents bought. That was in 1980s. Cost of a new car average. It doesn't say. It's got that space blank. Make a turn here. I have noticed this truck really leans in the corners a lot more than the bigger, fancier modern trucks. My goodness. Oh, it's not. Oh, I should have gone out of my way to go up to Alliance. It might not give me Alliance as having discovered it because I'm not driving through it. Median household income $11,800 per year. Cost of a first-class postage stamp was 10 cents until the final day of the year, December 31st of 1975. It increased to 13 cents. Cost of a gallon of regular gas is 57 cents per gallon. Cost of a dozen eggs is 77 cents per dozen. And cost of a gallon of milk, $1.57. So houses have like increased tenfold, but like eggs and milk have only gone like double in price or triple. Okay, some things weather the economy better than others, I guess. I don't know if that's interesting or not. I don't really think it's that interesting, but it's what the book asked for, so now you can compare that to modern day prices. The next thing the book asked for is popular TV shows. This will be a little bit more exciting. At least I've watched some of these shows. It shows Wheel of Fortune as being the #1 what to watch in 1975. I actually just started watching Wheel of Fortune in Pat Sajak's last year. He just retired, and I just started watching Wheel of Fortune like some nights, not every night, but some nights just this year, and then he retired. So I'm like, oh, well, whatever. But it was around in 1975. When I think of 1975 TV, I think of Saturday Night Live because it started in 1975. I've always remembered how old Saturday Night Live is because it's the same age as me. I forgot when I roll forward they stop. And then, let's see what other TV shows we got. Good Morning America, I've never seen that, even though it's been on for 50 years. The Space Nuts? I think it just says Space Nuts. I don't know if it says the... I was going to go over there and click on it. I can't do that while I'm playing the game. So I don't know about a TV show named Space Nuts. I never heard of that one before. Next one, Welcome Back, Kotter. I used to watch that as a kid. I mean, my dad was a preacher. I don't know if I would have been allowed to watch a lot of these shows, but I do remember the shows. I remember seeing them, so I must have been allowed to watch them. Space 1000? I've never heard of that one. Barney Miller, I've heard of that one. Delivering yard dogs to a trucking company, and they're not using a yard dog to park it? Come on, man. One Day at a Time, we used to watch that. I can't even tell what this next one is. Poldark? Poldark? I have no idea what that is. Two's Company. Never heard of that one. I wonder if that means Three's Company will be on there, because I do remember watching Three's Company. I've never heard of Two's Company. There's a show called Edward the Seventh. Never heard of that one. The Jeffersons, we definitely watched that. The Lost Saucer. A lot of sci-fi stuff going on. I never saw that one either. Starsky and Hutch, I think we watched that one. Trail of Terror. Probably not going to see that one as a kid. Oh man, I'm way over to the right. Rumpel Bailey? I have no idea what that is. Archer? Nope. The Great Grape Ape? Don't know what that is. Tom and Jerry? Definitely watched that. Actually, my TikTok handle for my family account is a play on words from Tom and Jerry. I hope people have gotten that in the past. There's a TV show called SWAT, which I never watched. Frady Cat, never watched. Sweeney, at least I've heard of Sweeney. Never watched it though. Howdy Doody, heard of it, never watched it. Dean's Place, heard of... No, I guess I haven't heard of that one. I know who Dean Martin is, but I've never heard of Dean's Place. I don't know if that was just like the most popular shows or the ones that released in 1975, but there's a collection of shows that were at least playing in 1975. So let's drop this trailer and we'll get moving. We'll find another job to do and then we'll talk about something else. Alright, I'm going to go a little bit out of my way to pick up this next trailer because I want to discover the City of Alliance. I was thinking, I was doing the little menus and getting off to the next scene, and I was remembering I could probably just talk about TV shows more than just read off of a screen. Reading these list of shows from 1975 is not very interesting, I get that. I could probably talk about shows I remember for an hour. Like, this list of shows is about the year I was born. It's not about the shows I watched as a kid. I could talk about shows I watched as a kid. TV was a big deal when I was... Oh my god. Come on, man. You can try better than that. TV was a big deal when I was a kid. Now, I'm sure the kids these days don't understand what it was like having a TV with only a few channels. Like, if you had a UHF selector, maybe you could get 10 channels or 15, maybe? Probably not that many, but we never had that many. I mean, we had the standards, CBS, NBC, and ABC. Fox wasn't even a channel back then. Not that we ever saw. But like these shows that were watchable in 1975 doesn't even mention the fact that, you know, Dukes of Hazzard was like my favorite TV show growing up. I mean, I was watching TV as an infant. I was watching TV as a kid. You know, more like 1980, 1982, 1984 would have been the TV shows to talk about. Everyone talks about the Great Space Coaster. They're like, oh, you remember Great Space Coaster? I do not remember Great Space Coaster. I remember Mr. Wizard's World. I remember Nickelodeon when we got cable in the mid-80s. Like I said, Dukes of Hazzard. What was the kit car? Knight Rider. That was a cool show. I'm almost out of gas. I gotta stop and gas up real quick. I mean, because there was so few channels on, you kind of just watched whatever was on. You didn't really have a choice to not watch something. I mean, you're watching stuff like Dynasty because it was on, not because you liked it. Because there were certain days where there just were no good shows on. Yeah, I remember sitting through shows you didn't like just because they were on. What was Hee Haw? Oh, we were on a cruise and they mentioned, the comedian mentioned Hee Haw, how ridiculous of a show that was. And I had totally forgotten about that show. It's like, oh yeah, Hee Haw. We used to sit through that because it was the only thing on Saturday morning, or Saturday nights. That's what I'm trying to say. I keep thinking to later in life when we had cable. Cable came out in the mid-80s for us. That's when we got it. And the whole point of cable was you paid your $35 a month, but there were no commercials, and there actually were no commercials. I mean, you paid a fee, and everything was like, oh my gosh. Wow, that was awful. Thank you for not hitting me, sir. That was my fault. So yeah, cable was, you know, the price per month, but it really was no commercials. It was just like MTV was music. We weren't allowed to watch MTV, but you know, I snuck it in there every once in a while. And VH1 is VH1 even a channel anymore? All these channels had shows that didn't really have commercials on them. Now we've grown so accustomed to paying for monthly TV that we don't even think about them charging us and having commercials. It's ridiculous. When I got older, like teenage years, is when the TV shows got better. My Two Dads, Family Matters, Family Ties, all those, you know, shows like that. There was that TGIF. I don't know if that was ABC that had TGIF, but like every show on there was like amazing. I think it was My Two Dads with Stacy Keenan, right? Yeah, I had such a crush on her. Booyah. It is 7 p.m. I might just go take a nap and then do this during the daytime. Let's roll out. I never really watched Transformers as a kid. Transformers toys were like really expensive from what I can remember. We always got GoBots. You know, the Transformer alternatives. Those are the toys we got. Smaller, simpler actions to transform from cars to robots. GoBots were our go-to. I don't even know if there was a TV show for GoBots. Not sure. Anyways, while I was sleeping, I looked up the most popular shows from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I'm going off of a list I found on IMDb. We'll just go through them, and we'll, I don't know, see what pops into my silly little brain to talk about. Number 2 is The Simpsons, though, so that'll be interesting. The number one the number one show by popularity is X-Files, which I did end up watching on a streaming service a few years ago. It was just, sci-fi is, I like sci-fi a little bit. I'm not like hardcore into sci-fi like a lot of people are, so X-Files just didn't ring a bell with me, and I gave it up after like 2 seasons. Even though more seasons were available, I just didn't watch it that much. I just didn't care. I don't know why it just didn't hit with me. The Simpsons, though, number 2 during that time frame, definitely was in my wheelhouse because it started in 1989. A lot of people don't realize or don't remember. I guess anybody could look anything up nowadays and say they knew it all the time, but I do remember when The Simpsons were just a short on the Tracy Ullman Show. Yeah, who knew Tracy Ullman Show was a thing, and who knew Tracy Ullman was a thing? People have forgotten about her by now, but she started The Simpsons on her show, and then they became a full-time show in 1989. And 89 is when I started high school that fall. So, I mean, it was right in my wheelhouse where, I mean, they must have been aiming that show just for me because it rung a bell and it stuck, and it's still being shown to this day. I gave up. I don't watch The Simpsons anymore, the new shows. But here we are, almost 40 years later, and now 35 years later. Simpsons are still going strong. I kind of agree with a lot of people that it got silly after the first writers moved on. Like when Conan O'Brien was a writer, I mean, those were the best shows. The first, I don't even know what they say are canon, but the first like 9 seasons or whatever it was were the best. I kind of agree with that. I did see some episodes after that, but I haven't seen any new episodes in the last probably 15 or 20 years. I would say the first 15 years is where I watched it the most. I remember when Maude died, spoiler alert from 20 years ago, when Maude died at the racetrack, and they were counting out, I think that was the 200th episode, and now it seems like whenever they do an ad for that show, when they're hitting a milestone, they'll put in the cartoon what number episode they're at. And I remember that the 200th episode is pretty close, if not the exact same episode when Maude died, and that was kind of when I started giving up on the show. Not because of that episode where she died, just that was kind of like the time that I remember. The Simpsons, ER, we did give ER a chance in our household. We watched the first 4 or 5 seasons. I actually just saw a scene, there was a TikTok I swiped by, and it was a scene from like one of the first 2 seasons, because there was a doctor on there that didn't stay for very long, and it was one of his scenes. And I was like, man, I should go back and rewatch that show. As far as I know, it's still going. My daughter picked up watching that show when she was a teenager, so I mean, apparently I don't know if it's still going, but if it's not, it just stopped because it's been going for a long time, since I was watching it in the 90s. A lot of people don't remember George Clooney was on that show. Noah Wiley, they started that show. Star Trek Next Generation, I never watched Star Trek. It says Columbo, 71 to 78, I think it says. I never really watched Columbo. I did see a couple of episodes from like, I mean, maybe he did specials or something, because I remember like in the 90s there were Columbo episodes. Maybe it was just made for TV movies with Columbo in them, but I have seen a couple of episodes, or maybe made for TV movies with Columbo, but I never really got into that show either. MASH, I tried to get into that a little bit, but just not my sense of humor. I didn't really care too much for it. Cheers, I actually just started watching Cheers again, like last week. We were looking for stuff to watch, and I was like, oh, there's Cheers. Let's watch the first episode of Cheers, where Diane comes into the bar with her fiance, and he ditches her for his ex. And the rest is history. So we started watching Cheers again. I'm actually in the process of... I'm not really binging it right now, but it's on there, so I will remember to binge it when I'm done watching F is for Father and the shows that I'm watching right now. I remember watching that one as a kid for some reason. Having a preacher for a dad, you wouldn't think I'd be allowed to watch that one, but I do remember seeing it, so it must have been allowed. I can't see out that window, so I'm just going to play it safe and stay over here. And it looks like he's letting me in, so I'm going to take it. The next show is Baywatch. I was obviously never allowed to watch that one. I would have been in high school by then. I probably could have gotten away with it, but just never did watch it. Baywatch. Little House on the Prairie. That is a show we just binged not too long ago. Me and my wife. We bought the RV a couple years ago, and we started watching Little House on the Prairie, and that was one of the things we said we wanted to do. Once we realized that they moved back from whatever it was, Nebraska or Kansas, wherever they were, they moved back to Minnesota, and Little House on the Prairie was set in Walnut Grove, and they always had to go to like Mankato for supplies, and we realized that that's on like the southern edge of Minnesota, just north of Iowa, so we could actually go visit that in our RV, and it's starting to actually become popular. My wife said just like a week or two ago that she's starting to see a lot of Little House on the Prairie / Walnut Grove TikToks. So somebody else got our idea. Now that Little House on the Prairie is on the streaming services, people are actually taking their trips up there and putting some tourism back into that area of the world. So yeah, that was a good show. We watched that one. I don't think we ever finished it though. We did watch like 7 or 8 seasons, but then it got to the point where Mary was blind and had the school for the blind, and we just never finished it. Got to like season 8 or whatever it was, and then just gave it up. Northern Exposure, that's another one on the streaming services. I started watching that one, got through about a season, and then gave it up. Looks like a good show. It reminds me has a lot of references to the 90s, which I get. It just never really stuck with me. I gave it a chance, got through a season, and then gave it up. Didn't watch it as a kid though. Magnum PI, never watched that show as a kid. Haven't watched it as an adult. I don't really know if I've ever seen an episode of Magnum PI, but my mom and dad did the taxes for Tom Selleck's stunt double, though. I remember that was a thing they told me as a kid. For some reason, I guess Magnum PI's stunt double is Illinois resident. Freaks and Geeks. That is a show that I never watched when it was out, but I did give it a chance on the streaming services when it came out. I watched the first season, I think it was. There was only a couple seasons of that show, so maybe I watched both seasons, and that's why people were so upset. It was like a cult following that wanted that show to go on. It just wasn't popular at the time, and then of course all those actors in that show became famous movie stars and went on to great Hollywood careers. So now everyone's going back saying, wow, this was a really great show, why didn't they make more of them? Well, it wasn't popular back then. Miami Vice, never watched that. Home Improvement, I did watch most of the Tim Allen shows. Home Improvement, I went back and tried to rewatch that again on streaming services. Yeah, again, it just seems dumb now, but at the time I did watch it. It was pretty funny. Miami Vice, The Wonder Years, I never really watched The Wonder Years. Never even went back to watch it either. What was the other one with Fred Savage? Oh, The Boy Meets World, that's what it was called. I did watch a little bit of Boy Meets World. That's not on this list, at least not yet. But I did watch Boy Meets World. Just never watched The Wonder Years. I'm normally pretty good at thinking off the cuff, but I think Fred Savage was in both of those, right? Or is that a different actor? That's gonna bug me. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was definitely in my wheelhouse. I like the rap music, I like basketball. That was a TV show that I watched every episode of every week. Don't need to go back and watch that one though. I bet that would be considered pretty dumb if I went back and watched it now, but it might be unwatchable. But at the time, I watched every episode of it. Matlock, I think I watched one episode of that when it was on back in the day, and that was the only chance it got. Babylon 5, never watched. Saved by the Bell, that was a Saturday morning staple for me. I think it was Saturday mornings, right? I mean, when I was a kid, cartoons were the thing you'd watch in the mornings. You'd wake up and, oh man, Saturday mornings were just nothing but cartoons from the time you woke up until noon. Would watch cartoons all morning, whatever it was, Bugs Bunny, Tom and Jerry, all those cartoons with the biggest bowl of cereal you could imagine, sitting in front of the TV just eating cereal all morning. And then what was the baseball show? It wasn't This Week in Baseball, it was some baseball show. There was a baseball show that was the first show on after the cartoons, and then after the baseball show I would turn off the TV and go outside and play. That was like the signal that, like, okay, I've been sitting here for 4 hours watching cartoons. Time to get moving. So I did. Happy Days. I mean, I remember watching Happy Days, but I think that was more of a family show. Like, the rest of the family was watching it, and I was just there because it was on. Trying to drive and scroll at the same time. MacGyver. Never watched MacGyver, but I did. I probably would like MacGyver if I went back and watched it, but never gave it a shot when it was actually on. The most MacGyver references I get are from SNL. Every city in Nebraska. Cornhusker State. Finally got it. The only reason I took this side road was to discover this city, so now we can head south. I try to slow down to about 20 miles an hour to make these turns, but this engine brake is so strong. It stops me to like 9 every single time. Got to get used to this new engine brake. Peterbilt, the new Peterbilt that I normally drive for IK Freight, with all the miles on it, I'm used to it. This engine brake is like way stronger. Oh, MacGyver I never watched. Alf. You know what's funny is Alf? I used to watch that show all the time. I mean, it was a comedy, it was different, it was interesting. But I don't really remember any funny parts about Alf. I mean, you kind of forget that he used to eat cats. They were like a delicacy on his planet, so he kept trying to eat the family cat. And then I remember that the family was having financial troubles. I don't remember exactly what it was, but they needed money, and then they found out that Alf's spaceship plumbing was made of gold, because on Melmac, gold was like an everyday object. It wasn't like expensive, so they used gold for their plumbing, and it helped the family get through a financial crisis. I thought that was funny. And then that same episode, they found out that styrofoam was like a priceless object on Melmac, where Alf is from. Gold was worthless and styrofoam was valuable. I do remember watching it a lot as a kid, and I started watching it again. It's available now on streaming services. I watched the first episode and I was just like, ugh, how did I ever put up with this show? So stupid. I wonder if that was one of those shows my parents let us watch and they're just like, what in the world is this world coming to? We're watching such stupid shows. It's probably one they put up with for us. After Alf is Spin City. How is Spin City on this list as most popular? This list is sorted by most popular. Spin City, really? How is Spin City more popular than Family Ties or Family Matters or what are all those other ones? What's the one with Kirk Cameron? I did watch Spin City. I mean, it was just because it was one of those shows that was on, and that's what we watched. Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. Never watched that one. Let me get turned around, and then we'll talk more about TV. Oh, the next one, Taxi. Again, that's another one I wish I could get into because I guess it was pretty funny at the time. I watched the first episode or two when it was on the streaming services, but it just didn't click with me. I was really hoping that Andy Kaufman, I was hoping he would be funnier, but I mean, it just didn't. I liked the documentary that Jim Carrey did about Andy Kaufman, so I had high hopes for Taxi, the TV show. Didn't stick with it. I gave it up after a couple episodes. Highway to Heaven. After we watched most of Little House on the Prairie, I was thinking about Highway to Heaven because I remember watching that as a kid. Again, growing up being a pastor's kid, Highway to Heaven was one of those shows we watched, but I don't remember much about it. I remember it being on, but I don't remember any specific episodes or any specific scenes. I just remember it was on, and then we never watched it again. Tales from the Crypt. We did have HBO when I was a kid. I don't know why we would have ever subscribed to HBO. It doesn't seem like something that would be on. I don't have HBO in my house now. I haven't had HBO since I was a kid, but we had HBO when I was a kid, and every once in a while I would sneak in and watch an episode of Tales from the Crypt. Probably like an 80s version of the Twilight Zone. That's what I was trying to think of. I was going to say that the Tales from the Crypt in the 80s was like the 80s version of the Twilight Zone. But it wasn't really exactly like the Twilight Zone. It was just little horror stories, whatever. But I did watch them. I don't remember much about them. I would probably give that a shot again if it was on a streaming service. I'd watch the first episode or two just to kind of remind myself of what I saw as a kid. But I don't know. I wouldn't pay for it, anything like that. Smokey and the Bandit was a TV show? I remember Smokey and the Bandit, the movies, as being awesome because I loved cars, still do. And I would go back and watch Smokey and the Bandit right now, but I didn't know there was a TV show called Smokey and the Bandit. It's probably one of those awful spin-offs that only lasted a little bit. Battlestar Galactica, never watched that. Family Towers? Faulty Towers, what is that? Never heard of that one. Kung Fu, never heard of it. Roots? I'm aware of it. That's a mini-series, right? We might have watched that, and I just forgot about it. In Living Color, probably wasn't allowed to watch that. Doogie Howser MD, we watched every week. Don't know why, but we did. Chicago Hope, never watched it. Benny Hill Show, that was before my time, I'm sure. Monty Python Flying Circus, that was before my time. Due South, Sledgehammer, never watched. Parker Lewis Can't Lose, never watched. Kids in the Hall, I actually watched Kids in the Hall. That was another HBO show. Lots of funny scenes I remember from that, but it probably wouldn't be appropriate to talk about on my YouTube channel. The squishing your heads thing was funny. I still did that with my kids. They didn't know where it came from, but that came from Kids in the Hall. When I would take my index finger, my thumb, and pretend to pinch their heads from a distance away. And then they would try and do it to me, and I would block it, like Kids in the Hall used to do, because you could block when someone was pinching your head. If you don't know what that is, I don't know, go look it up. It's hard to explain. But it's fun when your kids are small to pinch their heads. I'm squishing your head. I'll Fly Away. I know the song, not the TV show. And Hail and Pace. I don't know what that is either. So that's the top 50 shows by popularity from the 70s to 90s on IMDb. And it didn't mention any of the shows that well, it mentioned some shows that I watched, but none of the ones that I was thinking would be popular. I was thinking that the ones from the TGIF, the TGIF Friday night shows on ABC or whatever it was, I thought for sure they would have those shows on there. Family Matters, if you don't know who Urkel is, man, you're missing out. You gotta go look up Urkel. Well, I'm only 30 minutes away from making this delivery. I guess I should tell you guys to leave a comment. Let me know what TV shows you watched as a kid. Was there one that you watched that I didn't mention? Or was one of your favorites one of the ones that I did mention? Didn't even mention Nickelodeon. You can't do that on television. Remember that show? Where if you said, I don't know, you drop slime on your head? Or if you said the word water, I think they dumped water on your head. Was that what it was? Double Dare with Mark Summers. That was a good one. These are all old TV shows. I could talk about new TV shows all day long too. Right now, I gave up on Netflix for, well, a year or two, whatever it was. I recently signed up for Netflix again, so I started watching a couple of shows, streaming, just binging. But I didn't want to binge just one show, so I picked like 5 shows to just binge all at once. Arrested Development. I watched Arrested Development when it was on back in the day, the original 4 or 5 seasons, whatever it was. But then they redid another season. They came back and did an additional season like 20 years later. So I'm like, okay, I gotta watch that. So I'm starting to watch that again from the beginning so that I can include the latest season in when I rewatch it. I'm watching Brooklyn 911 with Andy Samberg. I'm watching F is for Family. I am watching The Ranch over again because I love that show. The Netflix original Ranch, that one. And there's one more show. Oh yeah, Tacoma FD. Whatever that show is called. I don't even know what it's called. I think it's called Tacoma FD. Those 5 shows I'm watching just like one episode at a time. Like I'll watch one episode of each. That way I'm kind of like binging 5 shows at once without watching one show all the way through. Once I get done with those 5 shows, then I'll pick some more to watch. So let me know what your favorites are. I've got Netflix, Amazon Prime, I've got Disney Plus, Hulu. And let me know why you like it. Where do they want this thing at? Oh wait, there it is. Oh, am I backwards? One thing I like about these cab overs is the visibility from the driver's seat looking out the windshield is so amazing. When I drove a bus in the Army, I always liked driving the flat nose buses because the visibility was so awesome. Like the mirrors are like an arm's reach away. Like some trucks and buses now, you got to reach out. You can't reach the windshield, but in these cab overs, you could reach out and touch the windshield. You can touch the mirrors. All right, boys and girls, leave a comment. Say something about a TV show. I'll say hello. I've been talking to everybody. Leave a comment, like and subscribe, all that jazz. And I don't know, say something to my daughters. They're going to listen to this someday. And if they're missing me that much, maybe they'd like to see you reach out and say something to me, and then they can read it 20, 30, 40 years from now and see what you said about me and my video making. And you can be mean, that's fine. I think it's funny. I'll catch you guys next time. You guys go watch some more videos. I'll go play some more games. Bye.